Hello, hello, everyone. For those of you who were with us last week, welcome back. It's always good to see familiar faces. To the new faces I see, I want to warmly welcome you to the second week of LACMA's LA Artists themed Evenings for Educators during the program's 40th anniversary year. My name is Laura Schilling, and I'm the Teacher Programs Coordinator here at LACMA. If you missed either of the two previous events, you will be able to watch them on YouTube, on our YouTube channel next week, and we'll be sending out an email to you with all of those details. So that'll include the lecture and the first workshop. Before we get started today, I'd like to share a land acknowledgement. LACMA acknowledges that the lands on which the museum is built and the region that we serve is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Gabrieleño Tongva, Gabrieleño Kizh, Fernandeño Tataviam, and Ventureño Chumash peoples. Los Angeles County has been and is home to many indigenous peoples whose ancestral lands are here and elsewhere. This acknowledgement marks LACMA's commitment to interrogating our own position in the structural conditions of settler colonialism and working to dismantle them. So before we jump into today's program, I'm going to share a couple things in the chat, including some specialized curriculum resources for this program, which go into greater depth on three of the artists that Rita Gonzalez spoke about in her presentation last Tuesday. These include artwork images, discussion questions, activity ideas, videos, lesson plans. It's a whole lot of stuff. So depending on the grade you teach, you might be able to just share these directly with your students and have them kind of work through the pages on their own. In addition to that, we're going to be sharing some links to our K-7 video-based resources and virtual field trip signups for Title I schools. I just checked with the coordinator, and right now we only have field trip slots available for 7th grade, but we will be releasing more dates in January. So be sure to just kind of keep checking back for those. The field trips have been super popular this year. We're also going to put the survey link in the chat so you can save that for later to submit your feedback on the program. For all of you salary point and professional development hours teachers, you know that this is really important for you to fill out to get credit. And finally, I just want to do a little plug for the last workshop of the program, which is taking place on Thursday. It's called Strength Self-Portrait, and it includes a really special conversation between Artist in Focus, Judith Hernandez, and LACMA educator, Maria Ramos. Judith Hernandez is a truly amazing artist, part of the Chicano art movement, born and raised in Los Angeles. You really don't want to miss it. It's going to be fantastic. So I would now like to introduce today's workshop called Objects in Harmony. This is our first This is our first workshop this year that does not involve any drawing, cutting, gluing, paper, anything like that. Totally different. And it's going to be taught by teaching artist Katy Unger. Katy received her Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from the Pacific Northwest College of Art in Portland. She experiments with processes in painting, mixed media, and video art, and currently divides her time between creating in her home studio and working as an arts educator for LACMA. As a teaching artist, she is committed to making the arts an accessible resource for individuals and organizations throughout Los Angeles and providing meaningful connections between art, environment, and community. Thanks so much, Katy. I'm going to turn it over to you now.
All right, thank you so much, Laura, and thank you everyone for being here today. I'm really excited. This is going to be a really fun workshop. We're going to be using, as Laura said, we're going to be using objects. So found objects that you see in your home and find in your home. And we're going to be looking at an artist named Noah Purifoy. So Noah Purifoy was just a little bit about him. So he was born in 1917 in Alabama, and but he lived most of his life in Los Angeles and Joshua Tree, California. He was a teacher, he was a social worker, and an artist who collected found objects, discarded objects, objects that most people think of as junk, and he assembled them together into works of art, often conveying messages on race, on identity, on social change. In the 1970s, he co-founded the Watts Towers Art Center. And then in the 1980s, he kind of left everything and moved to Joshua Tree to open an outdoor museum. Send you to the next slide here. Outdoor museum that is open to the public now. You can go, and everything out there is exposed to the elements. So the dust, the sun, the wind, and you can see on the right, this is a picture that is actually in the museum, but you can imagine it kind of just covered in dust and getting exposed to all of the nature that surrounds it. And that was kind of his idea. So we're going to get back to his art, but I'm going to kind of go through the materials a little bit. So again, we are just going to be using found materials that we find. That's going to be part of the workshop, where we're just going to kind of go around our home and look for objects that we're going to use. And then we're also going to be using a device for taking pictures. So this can be a phone, it can be a camera, anything you have. And then the last thing I will say is just thinking about your surface, because we're not going to be using glue. We're not going to be using drawing materials, paper. The surface is going to be your like tabletop. So, and that's going to be in the photograph. So just be kind of thinking about that. All right, so let's go to the next slide. All right. So keywords for our art: symmetry. Purifoy, this is a piece by him, and he, not only considered the stories and the histories behind the art, but he also considered the visual relationships between the objects that he used. So he considered, balancing the colors, the shapes, the textures. And when we're talking about balance, we're talking about symmetry. So that we're going to be using symmetry in our art. I'm having trouble with my cursor here. Okay. Sorry about that. So we're going to be thinking about radial symmetry and bilateral. So radial is, you probably know, when everything kind of radiates out from a central point. And then bilateral is when one half of something mirrors the other half. Okay. All right, symbols. We're going to be also thinking about objects as symbols. So again, this is something that was important to Purifoy's work. One example is kind of interesting is during the Watts rebellion in the 1970s, one of his first kind of exhibits that brought him into the spotlight was he collected charred debris from the streets, just like from the wreckage, and he presented that as art, as a means for a kind of call of change. So using this charred debris as a symbol. So as you're kind of, feel free, as I'm talking, I'm just kind of talking, but feel free to add anything to the chat, anything, any questions, anything that comes up, any ideas you have, because you might want to even kind of start thinking about the objects now. Think about like what symbols you have around you, maybe some objects that show symmetry. Okay. Not sure why I'm having trouble clicking to the next slide here. All right. Okay, so if we were to take these objects that show symmetry, that show symbols, and kind of pull them all together, that's a type of art called assemblage or assemblage. I'm just reading the chat, thank you. So assemblage is a three-dimensional type of art that uses collected objects and brings them all together and into an art, and often, exploring the visual relationships between the objects, but also thinking about the stories behind them, the history behind them. And that is the art that Noah Purifoy did, and that's the art that we're going to focus on. All right. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm noticing this thing come up in the chat, and I just want to be sure. Thumbs up. All right. Okay, thank you. Okay, great. So now we're going to just take a minute to look at the work of Noah Purifoy. This is a piece by him, and I'm going to kind of slowly go into some close-ups and just take some time to really focus on the objects and how they're repeating, the forms, the textures, the colors. And so let's just take some time and feel free to add anything in the chat that you notice. Anything that stands out to you? All right, from Janelle, balance of repeating colors in the background. Awesome, doll parts. Another slide. A wheel, time, bones, radial symmetry. Looks like Rauschenberg, somebody said. Sharp angles, baby shoe, broken toys, discards. So in looking at all of these objects, can you find any kind of maybe relationships between them? Any themes that you're noticing? Any stories? Maybe you can write in the chat just some kind of connections that you might find. Time, growing up, death, history, lifespan, wow. Parts of a whole, vehicles implying movement. These are great, yeah. Great observations, movement of time. So yeah, there's kind of this theme of time, of history. Awesome. Deconstructed parts of a whole, that's really interesting. All right. Sorry, I don't know why my, okay. All right, so we're gonna move on to the art making, but before we're gonna be using objects that we find in our home. Now, before we collect the objects, because that's gonna be a part of the art, is collecting the objects, start to think about objects you might use for your art, things that you surround yourself with. Objects that come in multiples. So thinking about, and this is for balance and showing symmetry. So this could be utensils, buttons, coins, lids, socks. Think about colorful objects just to add color to your pieces. And then maybe think about some objects that might exist as symbols. So something that's maybe personal. And we're going to try to keep it all relatively small, just so that we can all get it in the photograph. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes, and we're going to put a timer on, and maybe grab a bag or something to throw your objects in. Don't overthink it too much. These are just ideas. And then you're going to come back with all of your objects. All right? All right, is everybody back? All right. So I hope you've all been able to collect some, oh, I'm seeing some pictures on some screens of the objects you collected. This is great. So yeah, so of course now you probably have your objects. And again, as we're going, if you can always grab some more as we go. But I'm going to show you just an idea of how you can arrange your objects. So we want to think about symmetry. We want to think about color. Just kind of thinking about the relationships between the objects in terms of how it visually looks, or maybe if you have some objects that might represent a symbol to you, you can think about that. But say I was doing, radial symmetry, start with a center point, and you can kind of start grabbing your objects, placing them in different arrangements, moving around a center point. So I'm going to kind of keep going. And as I'm doing this, you can kind of jump in and start working on yours. remember to think about your surface, because this will be in the photograph when you take the picture. So you're going to be cropping it in. And we're going to start with one, and then once we get our first arrangement down, take a picture, and you can always do another one. Try maybe bilateral symmetry. Just try different arrangements between your pictures. Okay. So now that I've got a little something here, I could keep going, but what you want to do when you take your picture is you want to really kind of crop it in. So you want to have, you want to think about the composition, having nothing else in the photo except for your art, making it kind of as big as you can, and then taking that picture. And then maybe you can try a different arrangement. So one thing I'm going to say really quick, as you're working, we are going to put these all on a slideshow. So Laura is going to add to the chat a link. And when you find a picture that you love, you're going to click on that link in the chat, and it'll take you to a slideshow. And that will allow us all to share our works of art and to see it. So when you kind of be thinking about that, all right, so Susie just included the link. So as soon as you maybe try a couple different arrangements, and as soon as you're happy with your art, you can start sending them to this slideshow. You can send more than one if you'd like. And that way, in the end, we can see all of your works. So I've got a picture of that one, and then I'm gonna try another arrangement, maybe with some different objects. So what's great about this is that, with your students, they're using objects that we surround ourselves by. No gluing, no drawing. The objects that maybe have some meaning. There could be, stories that you could share after. But, you can keep changing up the art as you go. There's no limit, because you're not gluing anything. You're just kind of, you're preserving it through a photograph. I'm going to try some bilateral symmetry now. It is interesting also to think about the choices you make as you go, even in your own room, in your own home, like why you might put one object next to another object, even if you're like decorating. Maybe you don't, maybe it's because of the colors, but maybe maybe it's symbolic in some way, I have a picture of my grandma and my mom when she was young. And I noticed that I put these shells, this like stacked shells right next to it. And I thought I did it because of the colors, but then I realized after the fact that one of my favorite memories is walking on the beach and collecting shells by my grandma's house. So you might not always realize it right away. Okay, finish this one and then take a picture. And feel free in the chat just to describe your process, any ideas that you have as you're doing this. Yeah, curious to know what kind of objects y'all are using. Are you using personal objects? Are you using kind of a mix? I'm using kind of a mix between personal and, or at least objects that give me ideas as symbols. Twisted crayons, markers, erasers. Awesome. So yeah, and again, since these are objects that you just find around, like you can, as you're working, you know, grab something next to you, throw it in there, take a picture. All right. And make sure to remember too, you can be doing it now if you'd like. It's just adding some of these pictures to that shared link for the slides so we can see all of our art. Let's see. Ooh, I see somebody using tea bags. That's a great idea. Tea bags, writing utensil, printer ink. How cool. Oh, toys. It's funny. Toys is a great one because you've got, not only do toys come in sets like Legos and such, but they also have great colors. Shells. Yeah, yarn is great for colors. Yarn and thread. This is a process that can really be quite kind of meditative, I think. I find it very calming, just moving around objects in different arrangements. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, I'm gonna take another picture. So everybody make sure to remember to take pictures in between each one, because you're letting it last when you take a picture. Preserved in time. So, and then in the last, let's see, in a couple minutes, we're gonna share, we're gonna go to that link and just have everyone kind of share their photo. And if you can use, there's an email. So Laura added in the chat her email if you prefer to send it via email, your photo. So you can just take it from your phone or your your iPad, whatever it is you're using to take pictures. You can email it, you can airdrop it to your computer if you want, and then just add it to that link. That way we don't have to like move our computers on top of here so that we can see it. All right. So I'm also interested if you're, what's kind of what is the motive to your arrangements? Are they based on the visual relationships, the colors, the symmetry, or maybe are they more about the stories behind the objects, or maybe both? See if that balance. Try balance. You can even like build it up. I don't know if you can see that. Ooh. Wow. Okay. So, and let me know if any of you are having any troubles with sending the photos, just let us know. This is kind of one thing that's kind of interesting, this too, because it kind of, you can think about it almost in terms of creating altars as well, like just from objects. And it really, and just thinking about why do we collect why do we save the objects we save? What kind of stories and histories do they have? And why do we arrange them the way we arrange them in our homes? All right, so just about five more minutes of this. Make sure to take your pictures, try different arrangements. And yeah, I would say if you can, to the slideshow, maybe one picture or more if you want, but let's try to get one in there. You can. And then we're going to look at them and kind of talk about them. Checking out the chats here. Mindy, I just read yours that you're doing it with your kids and it's relaxed, and it's not relaxing because the kids are trying to undo what you're doing. Well, yeah, indeed, that is part of the process. Another thing you can do with these are, you could do a color wheel out of objects. You could do a mandala out of objects. Another thing is stop motion is a fun thing you could do. You take a picture between each time you move the object. These would make for some really interesting stop motion videos. All right. Yeah, so that's Lewis just said that the stop motion studio, it is a great app. I use it all the time. If you want a really easy kind of accessible app for making stop motion studio makes it quite simple. All right. All right, so two more minutes. Maybe you can get one more arrangement in there. Take a picture. Maybe we'll do a real minimal one. Real simple. So, see a question. Do you write your name on your slide? I think that's up to you. Yeah. Okay. I think if you'd like to, definitely. Yeah, foods are great for this. Colorful fruits, pasta. Oh, what else? Crackers. All right. So now what we're going to do is, let me share my screen again here. Sec. Okay. All right, so we're gonna go ahead. So hopefully you've gotten some slides in there to share, and then but for now, we're just gonna go out into some breakout rooms, and you're not gonna have your art, to show quite yet because it'll be in the slideshow, but just take a minute to maybe discuss the connections you made during this process, and also how might you apply this activity to your classroom. So about 10 minutes in the breakout rooms, and then we're going to come back as a group and we're going to share what we talked about. And also we're going to look at our slide or our object arrangements. All right, so we'll just kind of wait till everyone seems to be back, and then we can maybe start sharing some things that came up during the in your breakout rooms, any ideas that came up, ways you might incorporate this in your classroom. And I'll say, yeah, like maybe raise your hand or put your emoji up and feel free to share anything that came up. Yep. Oh, look at that.
I am so sorry. I didn't realize I was sharing.
Oh, it's okay. I was like, that's amazing. Right.
Katie, why don't I go ahead and start sharing the slideshow, and then people can raise their hand and kind of talk as we're clicking through it.
Great.
How does that sound?
Great. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll bring that up right now.
Wow. Yeah. So we're just gonna how cool. What is
That's my kitchen art.
yeah, feel free when yours comes up if you want to like say something. I mean, we're gonna kind of move through them pretty quickly, but if anything comes up, interesting. Oh wow, cars.
This title is called Junk on My Desk.
I love it. That's great.
Very good.
That's great. Yeah, you think about titles, you know, like what would you title this? What do these say about what you enjoy doing, about what you surround yourself with? Oh, interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I see so many different kind of stories. Feel free as we're looking at these, just kind of share the process. I mean, this could be yours, it could be somebody else's. But maybe consider some things that came up in the breakout rooms. These are all so different and interesting. It does kind of say a lot about all of you. Wow. Would anyone like to share anything as you're looking at these? Anything you notice? And feel free to just unmute yourself.
They're all really beautiful
Yeah, I agree.
and very personal. And it's funny how we're all teachers and we use a lot of same symbols.
Oh,
The
interesting.
markers,
Ah.
pencils, and paper clips.
That's really
One thing I thought I said in my breakout room was how we tended to all still stay close to our desk. It looks like a lot of us didn't move very far
you
on these objects.
Exactly.
mean in gathering the objects? Yeah. Wow. Oh, what is that? It's fun too. And you're like, what is that object? Those little tubes. Yeah, that's a really good point. Oh, are those slides?
Wow.
Wow. So maybe a photographer?
I love this one. It's my favorite.
Again, I see what you're saying with the, wow.
That is pretty. Nature. Cool. Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting. So, I see. These are like 3 on one slide. These are kind of 3 arrangements. Very cool. I could see these in a book, you know, like putting these all together in a book. Each.
We talked about how you might want to ask students to gather the items ahead of time. Like for next class, you're going to need 15 things that you can hold in your hand, and not really telling them what it's for, but having them collect.
Oh, that's kind of fun as like a surprise. Just collect them and then explain it afterwards. Yeah, you know, this is, I think it would be with students, you could really take your time with this in terms of collecting objects ahead of time and having different themes if you want. Wow. Very cool. Huh.
I think also when you're talking about symbolism is having the students create like a definition, like draw their little symbols and ask them to define what each object symbolizes, or having some kind of a prompt for them to think about. You know, draw your eye. What does that represent? Draw the marker. What does that represent? So you can kind of break down each thing. And also, we were talking about we had a different level of kids. I'm sorry, we had a different level of kids from teachers in my group from like second grade to high school. So we're talking about maybe for some students, you know, when you kind of give an open-ended kind of just make a pattern, it might be easier. For the younger students, it might be helpful to like have the kids draw a pattern on a piece of paper first, and then with the pencil and fill in your shapes with the objects to kind of give it some structure, some help.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great idea. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's certainly a lot of ways you could branch off this in terms of the grade level. And then in terms of, you know, what subject. Yeah.
I also think it's great because you don't have to affix anything. You can just, I mean, even as a teacher, we could just see everybody's screen. Although I don't know if the students I work with could have the wherewithal to take a photograph at, you know, flat, because it's a lot of tablets facing you. So, but I think, you know, the fact that it's mutable and not, you know, it's not affixed. You don't worry about the mess of the glue and that stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. So in terms of the taking the photograph, what were you saying about that? That it.
I just think I think for my students that that there will be a difficulty of having to have the arrangement in a position that they could take a photograph overhead.
I see.
So it didn't
kind of getting the cropping and whatnot.
Yeah. But maybe drawing around, you know, using them as stencils, and like Luis was saying, maybe making, you know, a drawing out of it would be the next, like a photograph.
Definitely. Yeah. And writing too, you could do story. I mean, I was thinking about with the piece of Purifoy, the artist we looked at, you could really do like a character study just from the objects, or a story, you know, where you don't know anything about the artist, but just from the objects, what can you, how would you describe either the character or some kind of story?
And I'd say just teachers all have treats at hand, don't they?
Yes.
Katie, in the chat, I had asked, can we see the list again of the suggested objects you asked us? You said, go find these things, looking for repetition.
Yeah, so we were looking, you know, symmetry. So you would want multiples of something, being that it's, if you want to show symmetry, you want balance. So having things that come in sets, you know, socks or anything that there's multiples of. The other one was just thinking about color, for your, and then the other one was thinking about symbols. So objects that might, you know, mean something to you.
Is there possible for us to see the slide so I can take a screenshot of it?
Yeah, let's, how am I here? Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, so I stopped sharing my screen, and I just want to draw everybody's attention to all the links we put in the chat. These are the same ones we shared at the beginning of the program, but I know some people came in a little late. So we have some information about Thursday's workshop, some resources for you, and then also the survey, which we'd love to get your feedback on. And that's also very important for LAUSD salary point teachers to make sure they fill out. So Susie's putting all those links in the chat right now.
Oh, great.
And we'll keep the room open a couple more minutes so that everybody has a chance to access those links.
Okay. Great.
I was curious to see if you'd selected some items beforehand and give them the same items to each student, how they would assemble them would differ.
That's really interesting. You mean that where all of the students have the same group of objects?
Same materials, different models.
Yeah, that would be really exciting to see. Yeah. All right. So in terms of that list, I think of sharing what you were asking, I don't know that we'll have time to go to that slide, but really, again, it's just really just multiples, things that are the same colors, and like jewelry, something that might have some meaning. So those are kind of the three.
And something else that we can do is when we email you all next week with the recording links, we can include Katy's PowerPoint presentation in that so that you can just have access to all of her slides.
Thank you.
I feel so inspired. These are just incredible. It's so amazing to see the variety and imagine all the different stories. And I'm just grateful that we all had this opportunity to kind of share space together and make these cool artworks. So thank you all so much for coming. We'll keep the room open another couple of minutes just so you can access all those links and ask any questions that you might still have.
Yeah, I was blown away by, in such a limited amount of time, all of those incredibly interesting assemblages that you created between color and just using everyday objects. It was really inspiring is a good word for it. And I could totally see it all put together into like a book. I think would be really beautiful.
Yeah, let us know if you have any other questions, anything salary point specific. You can always email me or you can ask now. I'm available. Happy to answer any questions.
I had a question about salary points. My first time doing this, but I had registered with my personal Gmail. So do you need to have our school email for the salary point, or does it matter really?
Whichever email is easiest for you, and where when I need to send you information about the assignment, that that you're going to be checking it basically.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't have to be your work email.
Okay, I put my work email in the evaluation, but I used my other email to register, so I don't know.
That should be fine. I'll just be pulling it from the survey.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So if we missed one of the meetings last month, is there a way to like rewatch or make it up?
Yeah, so if you missed any of the October events, we have those all posted on our YouTube channel. What you'll want to do is go to the LACME YouTube and in the search bar, type in Evenings for Educators, and you'll see the lecture link come up for Monique Marshall's lecture. And in the description field of that lecture page or that link for that video, you'll see the links to the other workshops. Our web team, for some reason, didn't post them all separately. They're kind of like linked from the lecture. So it's an extra step you have to do. But if you can't figure it out, just email me and I'll walk you through it or send you the links directly.
Okay, is your email in the chat?
Yeah, it was, and I'll add it again right now so that it's fresh.
Thank you.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions, I think we'll go ahead and sign off for the night. Thank you all again so much. This was so much fun. It was truly remarkable to see the slideshow just like being populated with all of your images.
I guess, Lara, I didn't know if you received an email from me, Karen Merchant. I had sent it a while ago. I just didn't see it. So I was wondering if I know what I'm doing. Because I sent it and I didn't see it, but that's okay. I mean, I just don't know if I uploaded it.
There was one I received that was a PDF and not
Oh, okay. So,
image file, so I couldn't
okay.
I couldn't upload it. And you know what? That one is yours. Yours is the PDF.
Okay. So how do you do it where it's not, you just have to, I have to change the format when I'm sending?
Yeah, exactly. Usually it'll give you an option. You can select which format you want to use.
Oh, and what should it be?
It should be JPEG. That's
Oh,
the easiest.
JPEG. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Bye, Katie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. This was so fun for me. It was fun because I kind of got lost in my own, and then seeing all of yours was like the highlight. It was so incredible what you came up with. So I had a blast.
Bye.
And thank you, Laura. Go on.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. Thanks, everybody, and everybody behind the scenes. We hope to see you Thursday. It's going to be really great. Good night, everybody.